in Fremont. I'm actually also from Fremont. I'm a Fremont native. I live in San Jose right now, but I've lived across my 28-year-long life. I've lived in Fremont for 20 years. I went to Mission San Jose High School, graduated from there in 2010, and then went to UCLA to do a degree in computer science, got my bachelor's there. So graduated from there in 2014. After that, I went to PayPal, where I worked as a full stack software engineer for a year. And then in 2015, I went to an ed tech startup called Course Hero, which you guys might have heard of. It's like kind of a repository for study materials. I was their first Android engineer, and I built their Android app from scratch, and then grew that team from 1 to 4 engineers and grew that app from 0 installs to around 100,000 before I left. And then after that, I went to Facebook. Started off working at Portal, the video calling device that we launched back in like Black Friday time, 2018. And then I went to work on Instagram for 3 years with a specialization on ads. I'm actually unemployed right now. I quit Facebook 2 days ago. I actually started Robinhood in like 5 days. So just enjoying my fun employee time during this week. And then I just really love software and I really love doing Android. So I actually write a lot of Android apps for fun, just on the side. I've launched over 30 apps to the Google Play Store. And there's I think 5 or 6 or so that have gotten over 100,000 installs. And then across all those apps, I've gotten about 2 million installs and like 20,000 ratings. I have a bunch of good feedback. And then another thing I do on the side, which is not related to software, I run a couple YouTube channels. I think my main channel on YouTube has over 133,000 subscribers and 80 million video views. So I could talk about that if you guys want, up to you. But yeah, that's me.
Thank you for introducing. All right, so just to start off with a more broad overview, since a lot of us here are probably interested in computer science, why do you think that software engineering and Android development are relevant today? And why do you think we should pursue this pathway?
Yeah, great question. So I think it's relevant today because software kind of solves a fundamental problem that humanity has had ever since it existed, which is like humans are lazy. I think kind of the main thing that software does is it takes things that were inherently very difficult before, and then it makes them very seamless. Like for example, like Google is a very, very kind of easy way to understand like this change. Like finding information before, you had to go to a library or like physically know someone or like call some random information line. But now it's just, you just open up your phone and then you can even use a voice command and you can get the information you want, however random it may be, in just a matter of seconds. So given that software does that, software is extremely relevant today and will only become more relevant like going forward, because people always want to make stuff easier. In terms of why Android development is relevant, Android is, so in the US, it may be hard to have this perspective, but Android is actually the dominant mobile operating system, and I think just the dominant operating system in general, because it's open. So in the United States, there's a very high amount of iPhones because the United States is overall a more developed and wealthier country. But if you're going to a country like India, for example, where they just can't afford an iPhone or pretty much any products from Apple really, they need something cheaper. So since like iOS is this kind of closed garden that is like created by Apple and only put on Apple devices, it's inherently not accessible. Google flipped that on its head and they made the entire operating system open source. So anybody can take Android and put it on whatever hardware they want, no matter how cheap it may be. And because of that, 80% of smartphones in the world are running Android, not iOS. So it is by far the most dominant mobile operating system. And after Android and iOS, you pretty much have nobody. Like Windows OS maybe has like 1% or something. So I think Android is kind of like a hyper concentrated version of like what I feel like software should be, which is like really smooth, easy, accessible, cheap, and open. And I think that's why like it's good to get in software. And if I could have my way, everyone here would become an Android developer in the future, because I absolutely love how open Android is. As I mentioned before, I build Android apps for fun. I didn't like spend a single dollar on marketing. I didn't really do anything really like kind of like mega big brain or special. I just built stuff that I thought was helpful, and I got millions of installs organically.
Great, those are really good points. Okay, and moving on to your most current job at Instagram, a lot of us were interested in like your work. So when and why did you join Instagram and how long have you been working there? Just like a brief brief description.
Yeah, so I worked at Instagram for 3 years and then Facebook overall for 4 years. If the question is more around like what is it like to work in a big tech company, there's a lot of different factors. So kind of disclaimer, every tech company is different. Like you'll have tech companies that are really big that are just completely dissimilar from one another. Like the size does kind of lead to certain attributes forming, but it doesn't lead to like, a consistent attribute that's shared across like every company of that size. In terms of what it's like to work on Facebook, the scale is kind of mind-boggling. Like I worked at Instagram, didn't have as many users as Facebook, but it still had like 1.5 billion. So it's pretty nerve-wracking pushing something that affects like hundreds of millions of people like overnight. And I worked on ads, so like we're talking like you can make a button slightly more appealing, and it'll bring in an extra like $100 million per year, which is like absolutely insane. And in terms of like, I think what makes Facebook special, I think Facebook leverages its size in a good way in that it purposely lets many different cultures and ecosystems exist. So Facebook, I honestly don't really perceive it as one company. I perceive it as like a collection of companies that each have their own kind of vibe and culture that are like loosely contained underneath the Facebook Inc. umbrella. So like the awesome part about working at Facebook was that like if you wanted to work on WhatsApp, then you could do that. Switching teams is incredibly easy within Facebook. And whatever like culture or problem like you wanted to fit into and solve, like you could go find that. And I think the last part, like another thing about working at a really big tech company is that you just meet so many awesome people. So I met like easily like well over 100 engineers that I still connected with to this day, like from Facebook. And that's one of the things you'll get at a really big tech company versus like working at a startup, for example, right? There's just an infinite source of people. Like one of my favorite things to do in work and just in life in general is just meeting new people and like kind of understanding their walk of life and learning from them. And then at a big tech company where pretty much everyone is smart, then that's like one of the best places to do that.
Yeah, thank you. What would be like what would be a job description for a tech lead? What exactly do you do as a tech lead at Instagram, would you say?
Yeah, so as the name suggests, a tech lead needs to lead the technical portion. So you're kind of responsible for making sure that like all the code lands in a good way and you end up shipping a quality product. Kind of getting on my soapbox here. I think the definition of a good tech lead is not someone who just tells other people what to do. It's someone who kind of empowers people to like want to do the work, and like you're just kind of guiding people in the right direction and then kind of filling in any gaps that may arise. I know that's a bit abstract, but I think like once you guys start working in the industry, which I hope all of you guys end up doing, then like you'll start to understand that. But essentially, like as a lead, you're responsible for the end result. You take care of people, and then you're always making sure that the big picture is intact.
Definitely. All right. So,
Yeah, we have a question in the chat. How do you want to deal with that? Should I just answer it now, or do you want to
oh,
like live for the
yeah,
end?
sure, you could answer it.
Okay, this is a very quick technical question, so my answer can be short. Do you ever port Android apps to iOS later on? I ported a few. I wrote them natively in Swift. I just got in at a bad time because like I got in with Swift is pretty early. I care a lot about quality. I think a lot of the reason why I've been successful kind of in my career and just building apps for fun in general is because I have an absolutely relentless focus on polish and kind of the tools that let you just quickly copy paste an app from one platform to another, like PhoneGap, and like I guess React Native. The quality goes down substantially, so I decided not to do that.
All right. So, of course, we have the topic of school and college. So, what made you decide to be a computer science major after you graduated high school?
Yeah, that's a good question. My answer is, to be honest, not super like movie level. I just chose computer science because my dad is also a software engineer, and he mentioned that it was a pragmatic choice. So I just kind of put it in because almost as like a placeholder. I was like, okay, yeah, like it lets me do kind of STEM stuff. And then my dad is a software engineer and he's doing okay. And Java availability seems to be high. So I'll just do this. And if I don't like it, I can always switch out. So that was kind of like my mentality going in. And I actually didn't like computer science like that much. And then I didn't hate it enough that I was looking to switch, but I wasn't exactly enamored with it. But then what changed was in my junior year at UCLA, I discovered Android development. And that's when I knew that I love working on software because like I'm an Android user, as you might have guessed. So like being able to build something and then deploy it, to that magical device in your pocket and just like test it out and show it to friends instantly was just such an amazing experience that it kind of got me hooked. Pretty much why I'm in software today. I don't really see myself ever moving away from Android in the future. I just love Android that much.
Yeah, that was definitely really relatable. Like, I don't think a lot of us really fall in love with computer science as a young child, but I think passion really grows as we get more involved in the field. If that makes sense. So, how are your classes at UCLA? Were they hard? What did you learn?
Yeah, so they were definitely hard. Yeah, the projects in particular were crazy brutal. Like you would get projects that would take 40, 60, even 100 hours easy. That was pretty mean. Yeah, I learned the basics of coding. So I think overall the education was definitely helpful, but in terms of like ROI, it wasn't great. I spent 4 years learning a lot of stuff. So I learned how to code, but I didn't really learn how to code anything that was relevant to like kind of the modern stack. And I also didn't really I learned a lot of more abstract stuff, which is like a classic academia thing, right? You're like stuck in theory, and then in terms of like brass tacks, like I actually want to build something that's like concrete and help somebody, like that's not happening. So yeah, I think I more or less just learned the basics. And to be honest, the degree is more valuable not because of what it teaches you, but because of the prestige behind it and the networking opportunities that come with going to a prestigious school like UCLA.
But would you say like the stuff you learned at college really transfers to work? Would you say it's worth it at the end?
Yeah. So I have a nuanced response here. I would say maybe 20 to 30% of what I learned in school was applicable to like my day job. And that's only really gone down over time as kind of tech has evolved. I think software is a really unique industry in that it evolves so fast. It's one of the only industries where you can have something that's the standard like 1 year and then like 10 years later it's effectively deprecated and no one uses it anymore. But like overall, I still think getting a 4 year degree from as prestigious a university as possible is still immensely valuable in software. Even though software, I think, is sort of a maverick industry and that you don't really need to like come from a specific background to be good at it. Like anyone can code, like anyone can find the resources and like find the network and then like put out a quality piece of software. There's still a lot of this institutional stance that's very entrenched within how software works. Like the most obvious one is the career fair. So one of the things I love about software is that people start working early. So internships are very prolific. Working as a computer science student, you can intern at like you can start working for Facebook, Google, etc. Like before you even graduate from like your 4 year school. And the companies tend to prioritize the more well-known schools in terms of like showing up to the career fair and be like, hey, you want to intern with us? And that's kind of a springboard for like your entire career. Like a good internship can like make or break your career. And then if you're kind of coming from a non-traditional background, let's say you don't go to college, you don't really have access to those career fairs and that network and all the prestige that comes with having a degree. So it's definitely possible for someone to succeed as a software engineer, like not going to a traditional like 4 year school, but it's definitely much harder.
So building off of like what you said about internships, when did you start preparing for like your first internship and during college, and how did you manage to secure that first one?
Yeah, the short answer, career fairs. Yeah, in terms of preparation, it's like you want to put together a halfway decent resume and you want to study for the interview. um I think like competitive programming and stuff like that is really taking off and like people are getting into that younger and younger. That's definitely helpful, like being able to write code on the spot and get to compile and like solve some algorithm or data structure problem. So that's more or less like what I did. And yeah, the career fairs. Like I think that's like, if I were to name like one resource that is the most valuable like going to college, it's the career fairs. Yeah, that's how I landed my first internship. I just met a guy at a career fair and I gave him my resume and then he called me and we did like an interview and then I was lucky enough to pass. So.
Wow, that's nice. All right, so um, but did you participate in any like computer science societies in college, like hackathons or clubs or any activities? And do you think that they're helpful in the long run?
Yeah, so I can kind of use myself as a cautionary tale here. So in terms of like my career, I definitely feel like I could have started earlier. I was a pretty lazy like college student, to be honest. I didn't really care that much about like my GPA, which would have been okay if I like replaced that with something else, like the things you just mentioned, but I didn't. I spent a lot of time like playing video games. So it took me a while for me to get into like what I would consider a top tech company like Facebook. It took me 3 years after I graduated. And I think it would be great if everyone here could avoid that by essentially doing all the things that like Joyce mentioned. So yeah, please take career fairs like seriously and like do the networking and study more. So I kind of got lucky stacking the opportunity at career fair because I actually whiffed the first couple career fairs because like I didn't really spend that much time polishing my resume. I didn't study that much for interview, and I actually showed up a bit late for some of them. And I learned later on that like you should show up early for a career fair, like literally like an hour early, because like the supply of opportunities is way lower than the demand. So you need to stand out in some way. And I didn't start doing kind of the data structures and algorithms practice on LeetCode until like 2 or 3 years into my career. I would just do like random problems like I found online and in textbooks, like only a few, and then I didn't really do the hard ones. So yeah, like the make sure to do your due diligence, like show up early, have a nice resume, be at least somewhat well dressed, practice your social skills, do the networking. A lot of I think the best opportunities come via referrals. Like do all those good person things.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for answers. And I guess the next, oh, there's a question in the chat. So other than LeetCode, are there any other resources or practice?
Yeah. Okay. Let me answer the question before that, which I think is like a very like Fremont question. For college,
Okay.
did you get a 4.0 GPA unweighted to get into prestigious UCLA, UCLA? I did not. I think unweighted, my GPA was like 3.8 something. So yeah, not 4.0, but I guess pretty high. Other than LeetCode, are there any resources for practice? There's a good amount. LeetCode is, I think, the number one resource in terms of just doing data structures and algorithm problems, which are the most omnipresent problem, and I think the most important one for junior engineers in particular. And there's a bunch of other ones. Geeks for Geeks is good. Of course, Glassdoor, you can like see people who went through the interview, and then they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, I got asked this question." I think those are the main ones off the top of my head. Cracking the Coding Interview, that's a book though, but that's also helpful. Um, anyways, moving on. Choice.
Yes, moving on. Um, so you mentioned that you had like over 30 apps with like more than 1 million downloads. Would you mind like describing your apps or maybe giving a quick overview slash demo of them?
Demo is a bit tricky.
Yeah,
I didn't set up. I
maybe
can.
like a description would be better.
Yeah. Let me share something real quick. So I have all my apps are published underneath a developer account, like developer handle. So I can just share that in the chat. If you have an Android device, you can just go through and then just install the various apps I've built. So let me just share that right now. Yeah, so I've built a ton of apps. Oh wait, this is direct message. Whoopsies. Everyone. Okay, yeah, I hope you guys can see it. So yeah, if you have an Android phone, you can kind of just download it and play around. So I built a ton of apps. In terms of the 5 main ones, the first app I think the first app that I built that like really took off was this app called Random Name Picker. It's quite simple, like given a list of names. Well, they don't have to be names, a list of items. Choose one at random. And I actually built it because one of my best friends from high school, he was a math teacher, and he was like, Alex, I want this app to select a student at random to call on in class, and then all the existing apps are pretty bad. So I was like, okay, I can fix that. I'm an app developer. And he's an Android user. So I just built him an app that didn't suck. And then I published it, and it kind of organically took off. Turns out there's a lot of teachers in the world that also wanted a better app. So I got tons of emails from teachers like, oh, this is a lifesaver. This is like, this is a great app. It fills in all the needs that the other apps don't fulfill, and it's free, which is amazing. So that's kind of the first one. That one has over 750,000 installs in Google Play right now, with like 4,500 reviews, most of which are 5 stars. The second one was this app called SQL Practice. So I took a databases course in college, and I was like, okay, kind of testing out my database skills is extremely difficult. Like running a sandbox with like a basic schema and then running queries against it's really hard. So like, can I just build a very clean version of that? And then I built it as an Android app. So it kind of has a database, and it goes like, I want you to write a query that gives me like this information. Like among this table of teachers, give me the top 5 highest paid teachers. And then you just write a query, and then it kind of grades your response. And then I have an autocomplete that helps you autofill like the database inquiry like keywords. And that one, turns out there's a lot of people who like wanted that. It's actually really popular in India. There's a lot of database administrators there. So I've gotten a lot of emails from them, hey, this app like help me become a database administrator. I'm like, it's awesome. Again, it's free. So I pretty much every app I build, I make it free, because I just do these for fun and I want to help people. So I think in order to meet that goal, I just make everything free. So that SQL app has 400,000 installs. And let me just go through the last one. Yeah, I think the last big one I want to talk about, I just built the flashcards app. So I worked at an ed tech startup, Coursera, from 2015, 2017, and we were really bad at flashcards, and Quizlet was really good at flashcards. And then I was like, I feel like we should like invest some time and money to make like a good flashcards app. And they're like, no, like Quizlet's already won. Like, there's really no room to make a good flashcards app. And then I just kind of built this app to like prove them wrong. So I just built this like flashcards app like on the side, and then I borrowed heavily from Quizlet, and I built a lot of features that Quizlet hadn't had yet. Like for example, flashcard creation via OCR. The idea is you kind of take a picture of a textbook, and then it automatically some of the apps if I were to go through all of them, we'd be on this call for until like 6 p.m. So I don't want to do that.
Right. So did you like use any resources to build the app, or was it just like going on YouTube and searching up tutorials and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I just a lot of being a software developer is just Googling stuff, which is kind of awesome because like Google is really easy to use and accessible. So like whenever I needed to, I was like, okay, how do I like create an app drawer or like create a button that ripples when you tap on it? I'll just Google it and then copy paste the code, and then it usually work. And I just kind of did that over and over and over again. So that was like probably much how like 90% of the code is written. And then I think the rest was just kind of like intuition. Like, because all these apps, like there's a common theme of like, these are apps I kind of use like myself or like a close friend use them. So I could very directly understand like the use case and like kind of the pain that I was trying to alleviate, like building this app. As I mentioned at the very beginning, like I think one of the superpowers of software is you make stuff easier. So that's kind of how I did it. No like really big brain things. Again, it's just like using Google and kind of like basic intuition and like building for a problem that I'm close to. And then kind of tying this to the question I just got, how do you get publicity without being expensive without ads? Just build good stuff and have a basic understanding of SEO. So building good stuff is kind of the main one. Like of users by building something good, because one of the downsides of being so open is in having a low barrier to entry is that there's a lot of garbage in like the Android app store. So like a lot of the apps are just bad. So if you build something that's good and you actually like take the time to polish everything, make sure it looks good, make sure it works on like all devices regardless of screen size and like all that stuff, people will notice. And yeah, basic understanding of SEO is just understand what people are searching for and like put those words in the title of your app. It's like really that easy. And it's pretty straightforward to do this. Like when you search for an app, you can see the autocomplete suggestions. The ones at the top are the ones that people search for the most. So just take those words and put them in the title of your app. It's that easy. Yeah. Okay. The certification test, that one I'll get to later. I feel like that one's not relevant to the topic right now. What language did you use to build your apps? Java plus Kotlin. Okay. Yeah. You can move on though.
Okay, so Oh, um, since you built most of these apps like during your work time, I guess, how did you manage to like balance work and building all of these side projects during your free time?
Yeah, good question. So a lot of different parts here. Number one, I think this is relevant to everyone, like no matter like if you're working or you're in school, is learn to time box stuff. So I think a common thing that I see is like people, they will get a task, and then they'll just be like, I'm just gonna keep working on this task until I'm done, which leads to them like working like late into the night, overworking themselves, getting burnt out. I think that's like really unhealthy. The human mind is only really able to like sustain greater than 8 hours of like work per day, like only for like a couple months before like completely shuts down. So what I do with my work is I always I just time box it. I go like, okay, I'm gonna work from this hour to this hour, and then like at the end, like like 9 to 5, and then after 5, if unless there's a massive fire, like the company is gonna die because of some terrible code I wrote, I'm just gonna stop working. And then like you kind of build that muscle, make sure you hold yourself accountable. Like it's really easy to be allured by, oh, maybe I can just do like a little bit of work, a little bit more work to like look cool or whatever. Just kind of just quash that kind of internal thought, because in the end, life is you're running a marathon, not a sprint. So your long-term health is extremely important. So like I time box my work, which means I don't let it bleed into my personal life, which means I have a good amount of free time. So that's kind of step one. Number two is when you build side projects, you got to be realistic. They're side projects. They're not main projects. They're side projects. As you kind of heard, like the apps I built are relatively simple. I'm not trying to build like some super crazy machine learning stuff or like a new Facebook or a new Google or a new Twitter or something, right? I built like my most popular app is solving almost this micro problem, right? Like you're just like picking an item from random. Like that's really, really simple. If you guys here have written code before, like especially Java, it's like it's just a giant wrapper around like math.rand, extremely easy to understand. So I build stuff that's realistic and pretty much small, and that allows me to like get a good amount of yield, which is a polished app, without spending a ton of time. Because in the end, I'm solving a relatively simple problem, so I don't have to spend a million hours to make an app that's both polished and functional. And then number three is when I build stuff, I just build stuff with kind of having a reusable mentality in mind. So when I write the code, I try to separate out into modules, and then whenever I build a new app, I can just copy paste all this code into the new app because I split it out into modules. So it's very reusable. So I have like a component for like rendering a list. I have a component for like listening to the microphone. I have a component for talking to the camera. Um, so it's I can just kind of like copy paste the modules I need and glue it together. And kind of like you're putting Legos together. Yeah. And a common mistake I see is when people build projects is they don't build stuff with modules. They kind of put everything in one file, like a monolith. That's a very, very easy, like very, very common trap that like junior developers fall into, myself included. So just don't do that.
Yeah, that's some really, really good advice. I really took away a lot from that. And I guess moving on to the next segment, if no one has any questions. Uh,
Yeah, we have this
oh,
certification question, and then there's also how did I build my college application?
okay. We could do that later on, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so I think you mentioned before that networking was really important in college and possibly in high school. So do you think we should actually like start networking in high school, and how do we do that?
Yeah, so I think high school, yeah, one of the things I don't like too much, especially looking back about Fremont high schools, is they feel too competitive. So in high school, I recommend taking it easy. Of course, you can get started early, but like you don't need to spend too much time on that. Like you're still, like there's still a lot of life ahead of you, and high school is not meant to be anywhere really close to a work environment. There's like kind of college in between. In terms of like the networking you can do in high school is, yeah, if you have time for like an online community or two, feel free to join them. And I also recommend creating a LinkedIn account. I think LinkedIn is kind of the main thing. Like if there's one takeaway in terms of like how to do networking, it's LinkedIn. I don't think it's really too early to like make a LinkedIn unless you're underneath 13, because like then there's like COPPA and there's like some kind of restrictions around like what you can do on the internet because you're like a child. But if you're older than 13, which I think everyone here is, then yeah, make a LinkedIn account. You can put like your high school, and then if you are guys are already coding, then put down the projects you have. Share them on your LinkedIn. Share your GitHub or put them on GitHub. You don't have GitHub. Yeah, and then kind of in college, it's Kind of the same thing. Yeah. In college, you definitely should have a LinkedIn profile at that point. My first full-time job out of college was at PayPal, which I actually got through LinkedIn. So yeah, have a LinkedIn profile, have a dope picture, have like your projects, use proper spelling and grammar, make sure it's clean. And yeah, go to the career fairs, go to talks. There will be people who go to your college from companies to do talks, and then you should talk with them and like get their business card or like get their email or connect with them in some way. And yeah, for example, at UCLA, like people from Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, like, they would come to the talks, and you should just go to them. Oftentimes there's free food as well. And of course, just like make friends in general. It's just good to have more people in the world that you know. So yeah, don't be a hermit. That applies to not just college, but like life in general.
Great, thank you. All right, so I guess our last segment would be more like miscellaneous stuff. So, um, I'm sure a lot of us have experienced like the imposter syndrome at some point because everyone in the computer science field is pretty competitive. So how would you overcome the imposter syndrome in computer science? Like, do you have any experience?
Hold on, give me a second. Someone asked if we connect on LinkedIn. I have shared my LinkedIn in the chat. Feel free to connect with me. I'm happy to accept any incoming invitations pretty much. Okay, yeah, imposter syndrome. Great question. That is extremely, extremely relevant. Not just in computer science, but I think just in general. In terms of like mental health issues, they've generally been on the increase, especially among America's youth. So I think this is a very pertinent and important topic to talk about. So I actually had a case of imposter syndrome when I went into Facebook. So I knew coming into Facebook that Facebook was a top tech company. And when I joined my first team portal, I was kind of overwhelmed by like how immensely talented everyone was around me. And I thought that they were way more talented than me. So I kind of shut down for the first few weeks. And I would like really stop going into the office. I would just like kind of book a meeting room like by myself in like another building, kind of do my work there because I didn't want to be around like all these people who were like clearly superior to me. And how I got through it was like, it sounds pretty straightforward, but it's like easier said than done. Is I just talked to my manager. I just opened up. I was like, hey, I'm like really stressed out because like I feel like everyone is making more progress than me, and I feel like I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and like I don't blame on Facebook. So we just kind of talked through it, and he kind of gave me reassurance that like you are a great engineer. You wouldn't have been able to get into Facebook if you weren't a great engineer, and being overwhelmed is completely normal because a lot of people, they come into Facebook and then they're overwhelmed because it's a company full of talented people, and the culture is frankly quite different from any other tech company in a good way. Like I felt like the culture was way more like fast paced compared to my previous two companies. And that's kind of the overall advice I have in terms of like how to deal with imposter syndrome is when you feel like you're getting into a slump and you have all these mental blocks, the most helpful thing you can do for yourself is to talk to somebody. And this is like again like a really common trap that I see with a lot of like junior and the younger folks in particular. They feel like kind of keeping everything to themselves is a sign of strength. Like, oh, I'll just kind of keep it to myself and not talk to anybody and then like tough it out. And then like a month later or like 3 months later, I'll be like, I'll have solved it. I will have like taken all this like mental clutter and like pushed it out and I'll be like clean and amazing again. That's not really how it works. That oftentimes does not succeed. So don't do that. That oftentimes leads to like a downward spiral and it just leads to the issue getting worse. So one of the core values at Facebook is be open, which is essentially like don't hide your problems, like don't be afraid to be vulnerable and like talk to somebody when you need help. I really cherish that value, even though I don't work at Facebook. And mental health problems in particular, just be open. Like don't be afraid to talk to somebody. Yeah, being vulnerable is a sign of strength, not weakness.
Yeah, thank you for that advice. So, is there any like last advice you would give to aspiring high schoolers like us today who are like really keen on going into the computer science field slash major?
Yeah, I think the number one piece of advice I have for you guys is just start building stuff. One of the things I really love about software is that in terms of like being relative to the other industries in the world, it's for the most part a meritocracy. Because like given how accessible software is, like as I mentioned before, anyone with a laptop and internet access can build a piece of software that reaches thousands of users. And even if you don't have like a formal degree or like some certification or like some kind of institutionalized proof that like you know something, even if you don't have that, you still have this product that you have built that legitimately helps people, and you can put that on your resume, and then no one can deny that you're a good software engineer. Because like, what's the point of being a software engineer? It's to build stuff that helps people. So like, if you've built something that helps people, then you're, by the definition, like, you're a great software engineer. And I think like, especially growing up in a very competitive like high school environment like Fremont, you're kind of raised to like follow all these rules. Like, you're raised like, oh yeah, like I'm going to get into a good college and that's all I need to do in order to succeed. And you kind of grow up just trying to follow all the rules. But like, one of the things about software is that there really are no rules, and there aren't really a ton of rules because like software is truly unique and it just moves so fast. So like, don't be too focused on like min-maxing your GPA and like getting into the best school and like doing all the kind of traditional things that make you look good. If you spend too much time on that, you're not going to be a good software engineer. So yeah, just build stuff. That's one of the things you can do as a high schooler. I definitely think by the time you reach high school, you have kind of the mental capacity to like understand code and like actually build something. And you also have a mobile phone at that point, like you're using apps, like you know what a good product feels like to you. Therefore, you can build a good product for other people. So that's the first advice I have. Number two is take care of yourself. Yeah, it's super easy to get stressed out, especially like once you reach high school and you get flooded with like all the tests like SATs and like GPA and extracurriculars and college applications and all that stuff. I definitely feel like in Fremont in particular, there isn't like a high enough emphasis on kind of self-care. So yeah, if you feel like you need a break, just take it and like let people know. It's really not worth sacrificing your health to kind of get an extra like couple points in your GPA. It's not worth it long term.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for those really brilliant answers, and they're really well thought out. Oh, I
Like
guess like
annoying.
we'll be commencing like the Q&A time. So if you guys have any questions, just drop in the chat or unmute yourself. So
Yeah.
oh
Yeah, I can go through them one by one, I
yeah.
guess, like as quick as possible. I would love to hear people's voices, so hopefully I can just get through all these text questions and then we can like give the mic back to the floor. Okay, how useful are certification tests? Not very. A certification test, again, it's kind of a more traditional form of like showing like that you know something. And that doesn't really work as much in computer science. In terms of like the traditional kind of certification that actually helps you the most is your 4-year degree. Anything else, very, very low like ROI in my opinion. Because you can only capture so much of kind of the heart and soul of software, which is building stuff, in a test. And just in general, like academia doesn't really capture software well. So like you can do them, like they'll mean something, but there's like so much better things you can do, like just building a product, building an app that actually helps someone. Next question. How did you build your college resume to get into UCLA? Like, what did you include? I don't like, well, there's no resume, right? You kind of have the application. I wrote my essays. I actually I went to Mission, and then like one of our, I think my AP Lit teacher, we actually went through all the different college essays together and then kind of like shared them and gave feedback. Like in general, like sharing is good, as mentioned before. And I also actually went to like a college prep thing, like my mom sent me there, and then like we had like we paid a person to go over my essays for me. And then everything else I think is not really, it's just kind of like cut and dry. Like, okay, here's my extracurriculars, here's my GPA, like here's my clubs, like whatever. I didn't really like engineer like a resume. Would you be willing to connect on LinkedIn? Already posted my LinkedIn there. When posting your personal projects on your profile, do you post all your projects or a few of the ones that you're proud of? I just post everything, but then of course I'm not like naive about it. I'll highlight the ones that I think are good, and then kind of everything else I'll kind of put like in like the more section. Yeah, so like I don't think you need to spend that much time engineering how like your LinkedIn profile looks, but you do need to be like somewhat smart about it. How do you distinguish imposter syndrome from realizing that you're not actually good? Talk to somebody. Again, like if you're actually like not good, someone will tell you. So like like when I talked to my manager, like he cleared that up. He was like, Alex, you're not a bad engineer. Like it's in your head. If I was actually a bad engineer, he would have told me, because there are mechanisms in any company to get rid of people who are low performing. Like they'll tell you like, oh, you need to like increase your performance, otherwise we'll cut you. So yeah, if that, like, especially if you're already in like a formal environment, like there are mechanisms that will tell you if you're actually bad. So like if those mechanisms are not firing and you think you're bad, you probably aren't actually bad. It's probably in your head. And like in school, it's your GPA, right? Like if you're not doing well in your classes, then your grades will be bad. So like if your grades are like bad, then you should improve them. Like my rule of like, even though I think academia is not great at teaching you computer science, I do think you have to care somewhat about your GPA. My rule of thumb is keep it above a 3.0, so like above a B. So like, yeah, if all your stuff is like below a B, gotta hustle. But if it's above a B and you still feel bad about yourself, shouldn't feel bad about yourself. You're doing just fine. Do you know which colleges have the best networking opportunities? Yeah, this kind of sucks in that like, again, the companies, their mentality is like, okay, the top colleges, they have like supposedly the smartest and most hardworking people, so they kind of invest more resources in visiting those colleges more often. So like UCLA had a good amount of career fairs, but Stanford like obviously had far more as it's more local and it's higher on the kind of the college ranking. So yeah, just Google university computer science program rankings, and then essentially the higher up on it is on the ranking, the more career fairs and like networking opportunities and companies will go there. And that kind of sucks, but that's how the world is. Okay, CS First is currently teaching Android app development to members. Awesome. What do you think are some things that a beginning Android developer should know? There's a lot. I think if I were to pick one thing that an Android developer should know from a tactical perspective, is just learn how to make a dope list of items. Pretty much every app has like a list of items, right? You have like Yelp, it's like a list of restaurants. You have Airbnb, it's a list of listings, or like Venmo, it's a list of payments. Like pretty much every app somewhere on Instagram, a list of content, right? Every app somewhere has like a dope list of items. So like learn how to make an awesome list. Okay, besides grades and SAT scores, how do you recommend we best sell ourselves as colleges to be accepted for a computer science major? I don't I don't think most schools do like an interview thing. I think they just kind of like crunch the numbers and like read your application, and then there's a yes no decision. Only like really kind of like hoity private schools, I think, like kind of do the interview thing. So I mean, just have a good application. The essay is really the only freeform portion you can control. At least that's how it was in my day. So just make sure you have a good essay. In terms of like what's a good essay, well, number one, talk about like an actual problem that you dealt with, and number two, try to be original. I feel like in terms of like kind of Fremont high school students, a lot of the problems are like very common. So like talking about like being good at piano, for instance, there's not really like a high demand like or appetite for that among the kind of people go through your application, because there's like a billion of those. So try to be unique. What courses greatly helped you in school, college? Intro to computer science, because it teaches you how to code, databases, and data structures and algorithms, because that's good for interviewing. And then pretty much everything else was outdated garbage, unfortunately. What made you decide to join Robinhood at this time? Yeah, good question. So I signed the offer letter, and literally a few days later, the GameStop thing happened. So I didn't like choose to join Robinhood like during this like giant mess that's currently happening. There were kind of there's a couple core reasons I joined Robinhood. Number one, my little brother works there. It's actually been a dream of mine for me to work alongside my little brother. He's also an Android engineer, so that's gonna be dope. Number two, I think like pre-IPO startups, like big startups, are the ideal opportunity, because then you kind of have the stability of like being a big company like Robinhood. I think is 1,500 people, but then you also kind of have the growth opportunities and scope for you to like have really big impact and grow a lot, because it's far from being an uber big mature company like Facebook, where like most of the problems are solved. And then number three, the commute wouldn't change for me. So Facebook's in Menlo Park, and then Robinhood's also in Menlo Park. So this is like a more tactile thing, but like if you stay in the Bay Area, the commute is like sadly really, really important, because like so much traffic and transit is really bad in the Bay Area and like the United States in general. So like don't underestimate the commute. Like even like let's say you have two jobs, like one of them's like a hellish commute, like 2 hours, and then it pays like just slightly more than this other one, which is like a much better commute, like maybe 15-20 minutes. Like just take the one with the better commute. It's not really worth the money. Like your mental health gets hit so much just like sitting in traffic all day. It sucks. Okay, you probably don't have them anymore. Show your college application essays. Yeah, those are long gone. The computer where this is on, I think it's dead. Sorry. How do you feel about the recent controversy regarding? Yeah, that is. I'm actually not entirely sure what I can say about this, because even though I left Facebook, but yeah, just TLDR, I feel like Facebook could be better in terms of like how we handle user information. In terms of specifics, I don't think I'm at liberty to go in depth. Okay, I made it through all the questions. Awesome. The ones in text anyways. Oh wait, no, there's more. Do you see yourself ever turning your apps into a business, or do you plan to continue working for other big companies? Yes, but not really. Yeah, I do these apps for fun, and I think a lot of like why I'm able to do them is because like they're legitimately fun. If I turn them into work, then they're not as fun. So I think like a big reason why I'm able to do these apps outside of work is because I don't see them as additional work. Like even though it's more coding, I don't see them as additional work. I see them as like something fun that like helps the community, which is why I still have energy to do them even after work, because it's not work. So I don't really want to turn that thing that's fun and then turn it into something that's not fun. Of course, it would be great to be my own boss, but yeah, I think I don't want to ruin that relationship I mentioned before. And in terms of like the risk is much higher because like these apps, I can't like the variance could be high, right? The app could become irrelevant the next day if someone makes a better app, but it's not like there's really a chance of someone building a better Facebook the next day. So like having like the standard 9 to 5 day job, like it really minimizes risk, and that consistency is very important to me. Cool. Okay, what's your view on technical morality from centering speech using data? Uh, yeah, okay. At a high level, I think big tech should be better regulated. Um, in terms of how those regulations should happen, I'm not entirely sure. That's a really fine line to walk. I think we don't want to suppress innovation, but as we've seen over the past couple of years, like kind of the intrusiveness of tech into our lives is pretty deep. So we have to be really careful about that. Yeah, I think the United States in particular is having a hard time with this because frankly, a lot of the politicians we have in power don't understand technology. Like they don't even realize that iPhone is made by Apple and not Google. So it's like really hard for them to come up with sensible regulations for tech. Yeah, it's just a hard problem. And I think we can do a lot better, but it's going to take a lot of time for us to get there. Okay, what phone do you have? I have a Pixel 5. As an Android developer, do you keep with new smartphone launch and stuff? Kind of, like not really. I'm not one of those people who like focuses a lot on like what the newest phone is and like what the specs are. Um, yeah, because I don't really care as much about the hardware because I work on the software. I make apps, so I just like software. Yeah. Joyce, any thoughts? Any more questions?
Wait, do you guys have any more questions? You guys could unmute yourselves because it would be more fun.
Yeah, I mean, nice to hear people's voices. I feel like
Yeah,
we're talking
sure.
to each other.
So Alex, what are your views on new mobile frameworks like React Native or Flutter, Xamarin, all that stuff?
Oh man, that was awkward. Okay, my internet connection is unstable. Could you repeat your question? I think I just pretty much lost all of it.
Yeah, sure. So what is your view on new mobile frameworks like React Native, Flutter, Xamarin? Because, it's a well-known fact that native development produces more robust applications, but, stuff like React Native and Flutter, it's quicker and, we don't need to worry about two different code bases.
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, there's really no one size fits all answer. I think my answer is like kind of do what works best for you. Like if you just really don't want to learn like two separate things, like both iOS and Android, which admittedly is quite a lot, then you should use like one of those frameworks. But keep in mind that you're inherently limited because those frameworks are always playing catch up to what's available natively on like native iOS and native Android from like Apple and Google. So like both your API and feature set will be limited, and then the quality, like the amount you can hyper optimize the performance, is also inherently limited because like it's a layer that runs on top of whatever powers like native development, right? It's kind of like a bridge. And like I personally prefer learning both of them natively because again, I care a lot about quality. I feel like when it comes to how I build products, including how I build products for fun, like not just what I build for work. I use quality as a very core differentiator, and I wouldn't be able to do that like if I wasn't doing native development where I can go really low level and like hyper optimize the crap out of everything. Like with something like React Native or Flutter, it's really hard for you to produce like the optimal experience. Yeah, but there are a lot of companies that use like React Native and Flutter and other frameworks, like these cross like mobile frameworks, and they're fine. But yeah, there's a limit because I think you can only really go to like a couple 100,000 users. Like you definitely can't get to 1 billion users off of those frameworks. And I've actually seen this happen within Instagram. We had a couple services where we just built them in React Native initially because it would be faster. We don't have to do iOS and Android. But then we noticed that over time, like it wasn't really holding up to the scale. Like as we added more features and we got more users like going through the code, like it was struggling performance-wise. So we actually rewrote all of these to native code. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question. What coding languages have you learned before and are comfortable using? I've learned Python, and so there was a programming languages course, which was honestly more of like an entertainment thing than anything, because like you would learn all these languages, but you wouldn't go through them in depth. Like you would learn the language and just do one course and like one project in them, and then you would move on. So I did like OCaml. I've written Perl. We wrote Prolog, a bunch of languages. In terms of what I'm comfortable using, it's really just Java and Kotlin. And then like things that are like kind of I'm semi-comfortable using are Swift, JavaScript, and Python. XML. Yeah, I get. Yeah, XML is not really a coding language, but yes, I do know my way around XML because of the Android layouts.
Okay. I think if you guys have any more questions, you guys could contact Alex later on. But I'll be sending out like a recap email with all the resources and stuff. So of course we have the raffle because it's almost 5 p.m. So I will be dropping a form in the chat. So I'm just gonna stop sharing for now.
Yeah, I guess while Joyce is doing that, so I have kind of a thing here that's a very natural extension of this. So my coworker Rahul and I, well, ex-coworker, so we met at Facebook. We kind of started a tech career growth community. The goal is essentially to across our 7 to 8 year long careers in Silicon Valley and kind of make that more accessible for people and help make it easier for people to like get into tech and like grow their career in tech. So we do sessions like this every week, Rahul and I, where we like go through a topic chosen by the community. Like we hold polls to see like what people want us to talk about. And then we just kind of give our advice and we make it interactive like this thing. Like we answer every question. It's our goal to answer every question that, that comes up like that someone has. And because we want to help people directly. So if you guys want to check that out, here's a link to a Slack. Oh wait, I keep doing direct message, sorry. Here's a link to like a Slack server. You should be able to just immediately join the Slack server by clicking that link. But if it doesn't work, just ping me. I guess you would have to ping me on LinkedIn. Let me just drop my Facebook here too, actually. I don't think everyone here has LinkedIn, but I'm sure everyone has a Facebook, even if they don't use it.
Basically, Slack is like professional Discord.
It's professional, yeah, pretty much. Like Discord is also Slack for gamers.
Okay, so have you guys finished filling out the form? Just like put your name and your email in it, and then I will be doing a random name generator. I will give you guys 30 more seconds. There's 7 responses, so we're waiting on maybe like 2 or 3 more.
Guess I can quickly answer this question. What new technologies interest you / are keeping an eye on? Blockchain, though I'm not investing in crypto, that's too dangerous. I think AR/VR is also very appealing. Machine learning actually relevant right now. Like for example, YouTube recommended, that's a giant like machine learning algorithm. Same with like content ranking and like Facebook feed and Instagram feed and like the feeds. And machine learning is a big one. I think those are the main ones. Yeah. Have you ever experienced burnout or work late nights? Yeah, burnout, yes. I actually burned out twice during the pandemic because I feel like the lack of human interaction like at work kind of made work more burdensome and feel heavier. So there were actually 2 periods during the pandemic where I just took an entire week off just to chill. I didn't like visit anywhere, obviously, because of the pandemic. Yeah, working late nights, yeah. Like it's especially if you work on something that is consumer facing, you like things might break. We call it a severity, like a severe issue called like nickname sevs. So sometimes you have to work late to debug like a sev, like, oh yeah, like for example, Facebook feed doesn't load for like 3% of users. That's pretty bad. Yeah, but for the most part, I don't work late nights. Like I said before, time boxing is like really important. Like once you like, if you maintain good work-life balance, it'll permeate to like everything else in your life. Similarly, if you don't maintain good work-life balance, it'll permeate to everything else in your life, and other things will suffer. Are there like 11 people in the form, Joyce?
There's like 7 people, but I could hold on. Okay, so there are 7 people. If you guys, okay,
I guess you can run it.
I'll just do it. Okay, so for the raffle,
Nice little wheel animation they have.
oh, where do I?
Here we
Rob,
go.
Rob,
Congratulations.
congrats.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm pretty sure you'll get an email for the gift card soon.
Yeah, I just need your email, Rob. You can just like direct message me here on Zoom, and I can just like copy paste it to my notes.
Oh.
Yeah. Or Joyce can ping it to me. I just need the email in some way.
All right,
here we
so
go.
yeah. So thank you guys so much for coming, and thank you so much, Alex, for like spending your time with us today and just talking about all of those stuff. Those are some really insightful answers, and I'm sure we all took away a lot. So
yeah,
thank
I'm
you.
happy to talk with fellow Fremonters. I've been through the kind of the Fremont high school grind before, so hope you guys are doing well there. Yeah, like as mentioned before, like Rahul and I would love to see you on Slack. Slack is actually small enough that we can answer every question directly. It's not at the scale where we have to like answer really questions really slowly or ignore some. So like, yeah, if you join the Slack, feel free to ping us with whatever questions you have about like just software and kind of growing your career in technology, and we are happy to answer them.
Thank you. So
Cool. Yeah.
I guess that'll be it.
Yeah. Thank you guys for coming. It's good talking with you guys. See you guys later, maybe on Slack.
Thank you, Alex.
All right. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Bye.